In the movie Vice, there's a focus group being questioned about the messaging coming out of the Bush White House.
Jasmine, jump in, please.
I don't get what this Al-Qaeda is. Are they a country? Like, why can't we just bomb them?
That's really interesting.
At the end of the film, we return to the same group, but now they are discussing the movie in which they are acting. It's very postmodern.
Sorry to interrupt, but Mark wanted to share something with everyone.
Something's been bothering me this whole movie, and I just figured it out. The whole thing's liberal. It's got a liberal bias.
Interesting. Does anyone else feel that way? Yeah, go ahead.
It's all facts, right? I mean, they had to vet all this with a lawyer. How does that make it? What's liberal
You would
about
say that libtard.
What? Okay, I'm sorry. So because I have the ability to understand facts, that makes me a liberal.
Okay, guys, let's just take it down.
This childish exchange is typical of so many arguments today, especially on social media, where name-calling is the norm, and everyone thinks they alone have the facts on their side.
Take it down a notch or two, okay?
The orange Cheeto that you hired is the president, and he's ruining the country that you claim to love.
Is it any wonder that so many of us are just waiting for the next distraction?
I can't wait to see the new Fast and the Furious movie. That looks lit.
This cynical view of humanity may be right. Perhaps we are nothing more than semi-intelligent apes with little hope of making anything better. But I try not to be a cynic.
Said the first time our nation's ever been divided. I remember what it was like when I got out of college. There was a Vietnam War and a draft. There were major race riots. There was political assassinations. The president was nearly impeached. And a lot of people thought the country was going down the tubes, and it turns out we're too strong to go down the tubes. And so I'm very optimistic.
Good.
Vice begins by declaring its truthfulness. Only the secretive nature of Dick Cheney allegedly prevented the filmmakers from getting all the details right. Unfortunately, the movie panders to a select audience with a collection of cliches and half-truths at best.
So, what do we,
Spit it out. What are you trying to say?
What do we believe? What do we believe?
What do we believe? Oh, that's very good. What do we believe?
These are not just unethical characters. They're practically nihilists.
Billy doesn't care about anything. He's a nihilist.
Oh, that must be exhausting.
Okay, they're not exactly nihilists. They do seem to love power for the sake of power.
That is the kind of power that exists in this squat little ugly building.
Power.
Power.
Power. Power. Power.
Power.
But no one has shown the world the true power of the American presidency.
Sorry, wrong cartoon villain, but you get the idea. Even Dick Cheney's wife, Lynn, is depicted as a Macbeth-like figure, grasping for power through her husband because the glass ceiling is in her way.
Here's my plan. Right? Either you stand up straight and you get your back straight and you have the courage to become someone, or I'm gone. I know a dozen guys and a few professors at school who would date me.
I love you, Lynn.
Then prove it! Prove it! I can't go to a big Ivy League school, and I can't run a company or be mayor. That's just the way the world is for a girl. I need you. And right now, you are a big, fat, piss-soaked zero.
After they both become major players in Washington, we are informed through text that Lynn wrote several books on American history and served as the chair of the National Endowment for the Humanities. But she is never seen working at such endeavors or caring about anything other than the accumulation of more power. And it is their shared love of power that seems to hold them together.
Can you feel it, Dick? Half the room wants to be us, the other half fears us. I know George is next in line, but after that, who knows?
All right, hey. All right, lighten up, sweetheart. It's a party.
Enter George W. Bush, who is presented as a minor character in the Cheney story. I doubt this alleged incident actually occurred, since Lynn only became chair of the NEH in May of 1986.
Hello, Lynn. Congratulations on your appointment.
And W stopped drinking altogether at the end of July that same year. Why would W be drinking at a Washington party, or even attending one, without his wife during this very short time frame? But the truly absurd part is when the film shows Dick accepting the position of running mate, and the two men toast with what looks like large beers, as if W had never stopped drinking at all.
Hot damn. Yeah, well, good. Hey, let's celebrate.
Vice also repeats several well-worn tropes about the Bush administration, like the idea that the president was completely lost, Condoleezza Rice didn't know much about anything, Donald Rumsfeld just wanted to blow things up for the fun of it, and Dick Cheney was calling all the shots.
We picked up chatter from well-known al-Qaeda operatives celebrating today's attack.
We shouldn't rule out Iraq.
But what's al-Qaeda's leader's name?
His name is Osama bin Laden.
But this is clearly al-Qaeda. I've been tracking their movements for years. Their fingerprints are all over this.
Iraq has all the good targets.
Iraq has nothing to do with this stuff.
Richard, you don't know that for sure.
I do know.
Mr. President, if I may, Afghanistan is al-Qaeda's headquarters. That is where our focus should be.
And the CIA would be capable of taking out the Taliban's power structure.
Yeah, all due respect, George, Mr. President, we are the Pentagon, and this is what we do.
Okay, we'll go with Tenant CIA.
I'll make some calls to our allies.
Thank you, sir.
Given the current situation, Mr. President, it is wise that we not be in the same location for continuity of government.
Oh, yeah, well, of course, we're gonna be all right on this, aren't we?
Yes, sir.
In Charlie Chaplin's brilliant parody of Hitler, the great dictator, he depicts the madman of Germany treating the world as his toy. But in Vice, President Bush is depicted as too oblivious to even know that he holds the world in his hand.
I think that's an excellent idea. We want to take that motherfucker's thumb down for a long time.
As simplistic and distorted as this version of reality is, at least Vice has some redeeming qualities as a movie. It's well shot and edited, with some great moments of dry humor.
44.
Someone call an ambulance!
Can you breathe? I'm having a heart attack, you idiot.
Like director Adam McKay's previous feature, The Big Short, Vice finds interesting ways in which to convey its spin on history.
Good evening, gentlemen. Tonight we're offering the enemy combatant, whereby a person is not a prisoner of war or a criminal, which means, of course, that he has absolutely no protection under the law. We're also offering an extraordinary rendition where suspects are abducted without record on foreign soil and taken to foreign prisons in countries that still torture.
Oh, that sounds delicious.
We also have Guantanamo Bay, which is very, very complicated, but it does allow you to operate outside the purview of due process on land which isn't technically U.S. territory, but where we still do have control. And also we have a very fresh and delicious War Powers Act interpretation, which gives the executive branch broad powers to attack nations or people who it deems still possibly a threat. We have the fact that under the unitary executive theory, if the president does anything, it must be legal. Which of course means you can do whatever the fuck you want. So, gentlemen, which would you like?
We'll have them all. Excellent choice. Thank you.
I can think of no similarly complimentary things to say about Oliver Stone's rendition of the Bush administration in W.
Axis of hatred?
I know. Something about it just misses.
Any other brilliant ideas?
How about axis of weasels?
Don't get cute, Carl. This is serious now.
I think it needs to be stronger. Just cut through the noise, like Reagan with the evil empire speech.
Was it too much then to... What about Axis of Evil?
Axis of evil. Evil. Yeah, I like the ring of that. That's good.
This film takes the caricatures presented in Vice and turns them up to 11.
Mr. President, if I may, given your strong commitment to democracy, do you think that Iran should be lumped together with Iraq and North Korea? After all, Iran has a democratically elected president.
As always, Guru. Sharp.
Thank you.
Iran is not Iraq, and Iraq is not Iran. I know that.
Of course, Dick Cheney is again presented as the real decider, who simply needs to nudge the president in the direction he wants to go.
Vice.
Sir, as you know, I don't view this issue as a matter of choice. Since 9/11, there's no going back.
Well then, we'll go with Axis of Evil.
Yes, Mr. President.
And now I'm tired of this sentence. All right, before we go, let's all take a moment. You too, Turd Blossom.
Even W's sobriety and religious faith are presented in the worst possible light, as if he is simply going through the motions of praying and knows nothing of Christ. His triumph over the bottle appears to have only made him angrier, more on edge, and less equipped to deal with life and his perpetual daddy issues.
Sorry to hear about Selig screwing you.
No. You know, I was a dang fool thinking he'd ever make me commissioner. He was just jerking my chain, keeping the job warm for himself.
You own a baseball team. Spare yourself the headache. Maybe better you stay out of the barrel.
What do you mean?
Just better.
So how's Jeb?
You know, I think your brother's actually going to be governor of Florida. I really do.
You don't say, huh? He's always had that ambition.
Oh, who knows these things? But that kid could, well, one day, he could even be president. Gotta be getting back. Nice seeing you, son. You keep it up. And I'll throw out that first ball when you need me.
For Oliver Stone, the invasion of Iraq was about one thing: oil.
Iraq alone, 10% of the world's reserves. 60 of 80 oil fields are still undeveloped.
And probably another 100 billion gallons in their western desert. They're floating in a sea of oil.
We have bases in more than 120 countries all over the world. We include Iraq, look what happens. Nexus of power that won't be broken in our lifetime, if we stick to the plan.
So what is our real exit strategy on Iraq, Dick?
There is no exit. We stay.
Spoken like a true oilman.
It's big, Vice. You know, big thoughts. But you go out here and you scare people when you talk like that. Working Joe's not thinking about oil. We're talking 9/11 terrorists, WMDs. We're talking freedom and democracy. We're talking axis of evil.
Sir, you have the touch, not I.
Bush's only positive feature is said to be his touch, his ability to sell people on lies. Just how such an unlikable character could relate to ordinary people is never made clear, because we never see it happen. Even the brief glimpse we are given of the president visiting wounded warriors is profoundly uncomfortable, as if this man can't relate to anyone.
¿Cómo está? estamos muy contentos con su hijo. Su hijo está sirviendo el pay. Es un hombre fuerte. Got him the shirt. Maybe you can give it to him when he wakes up.
I'd like to stand up for you, sir.
No, you don't, Sergeant. No, I'm the one standing up for you. And Laura and I are looking forward to seeing you again next trip. All right now? All right, you hang in there.
Thank you.
Bueno, si ven a mi madre o padre en Houston, digan hola, okay?
With the passage of time, people are beginning to reassess George W. Bush and his administration. The election of Donald Trump in particular has caused some on the left to pause and think about how bad a truly bad president can be. At the same time, W has become a pariah to many on the right, who believe their anti-establishment paranoia is the only real form of conservatism. For those who are willing to put aside their previous conclusions and take a fresh look at President Bush, I highly recommend that you watch DC 9/11, Time of Crisis, made by a prolific Australian director I've never heard of. It was originally aired on Showtime in 2003, and I recently found it on Amazon's IMDb channel.
A second plane has hit the second tower. America is under attack.
Say that word for me?
Game.
Guess you know why the E's at the end of that word.
The film is a series of reasonably recreated events on September 11th and the 9 days that followed it. The portrait it paints is one of decisive and thoughtful leadership in the face of mass carnage.
Mr. President, are you
We're
aware?
gonna talk about that later.
Thank you.
For those who did not live through it, you may never fully understand what 9/11 meant at the time. The confusion and fear, as if the world were coming apart.
Vice.
There have been threats against nuclear plants. A reported car bomb at the Lincoln Memorial. Stories coming in of snipers all across the country.
All out war?
They're evacuating the Capitol and the Supreme Court.
You hold down the fort, Vice. We're on our way. Get full security on Laura and my girls.
Right.
I need Mueller. He's only had 6 days on the job, but the rubber's hit the road. And I need Condi to...
Mr. President, we've received a threat against this aircraft.
Air Force One? A credible threat?
Very much credible, sir. They used today's code word. The Angel is next.
Even once the rumors subsided and the real details of what happened became known, we were left with a profound chill that the 21st century may prove to be even more bloodthirsty than the 20th.
I was so optimistic at the beginning of the century. I thought really it was good. The century begins again, a new one. Now we have time to think about it, to take a deep breath and say, all right, we shall never do what has been done by others a century ago. And here we are, hardly 2 years. And once more, we are stunned into silence. Stunned by the crime, by the absurdity of the crime. I have studied the theories, the history of terrorism for years. Do you know this is the first time that terrorists are doing what they shouldn't do but did, without explaining why they have done it? They haven't even left a message. They didn't even tell us why they have done it. A protest, a recrimination, a demand, nothing. As if they wanted death to be the message. As if to tell us, you know, you are not worthy of our words. You are worthy of death.
The attack upended our understanding of the post-Cold War world and forever changed President Bush. a fact made clear in his farewell address.
As the years passed, most Americans were able to return to life much as it had been before 9/11. But I never did.
It's easy for critics to imagine how they would have done so much better if a tremendous weight like that had fallen on their shoulders. But that hardly makes it true.
Whoever did this isn't going to like me as president. They're going to pay for this.
From the outset of his administration, Bush knew he couldn't expect a fair shake from many in the media, who had mistakenly called Florida for Al Gore in the 2000 election, despite the fact that Bush was never behind in the actual vote count. To make matters worse, they called Florida before the polls were even closed in the Panhandle section of the state, where Bush's support was the strongest.
Now, folks, the equation changes. CBS News estimates when all the votes are in and counted, the Sunshine State will have plenty of sunshine for Al Gore.
We don't just have egg in our face, we've got omelet all over our suits.
Unable to accept the fact that he lost, Al Gore made an unprecedented decision to withdraw his concession and poison the well of American politics by trying to have selective recounts only in the counties that were likely to benefit him most, while simultaneously demanding that ballots submitted by military personnel serving overseas be thrown out for technical violations. But it was Bush who was ultimately blamed for daring to win the court battle that he was forced into.
Let there be no doubt, while I strongly disagree with the court's decision, I accept it. I accept the finality of this outcome, which will be ratified next Monday in the Electoral College. And tonight, for the sake of our unity as a people and the strength of our democracy, I offer my concession.
Every day after that, the haters were looking for things to complain about or spin in an unfavorable direction. And September 11th, 2001 was no exception.
Excuse me, Mr. President, the press is desperate for photographs.
Yeah, whatever.
When President Bush acquiesced to media requests for photos, other members of the media used this as an opportunity to harp on Bush for capitalizing on the tragedy. Bush was frequently depicted as too much of a cowboy, in the worst sense of the word, too prone to make rash and ill-informed decisions. But now the cries came up that the president was weak and indecisive for heeding the advice of the Secret Service and staying out of Washington for most of the day.
He did the right thing. He took the advice of the Secret Service and went off at Air Force Base.
He did. He stayed away for hours after all the planes were accounted for. And as for the cock and bull story about Air Force One being under threat, give me a break.
Cock and bull story by who?
Yeah.
The military, the Secret Service?
See the op-ed column?
The one about the photograph of POTUS on the Air Force One telephone?
Of course, there was also a chorus of voices who wanted to pretend that Cheney was really in charge.
Is he demanding that his real keeper, Cheney, let him go home?
Carl, it's to be expected.
Is it?
Most of them get it. The Cheney runs the show myth is always going to be with some of them. But every day, more and more see what's really going on here.
Good.
DC 9/11 not only shows President Bush as the clear leader of his administration, it gives viewers a glimpse of the inadequate systems that they inherited.
Bob, I know you've only had 6 days on the job, but what have your folks been getting?
Can't say yet, Mr. President. We're very constrained when it comes to domestic intelligence. We're sifting through it now.
Okay, what have they given George's people over at CIA?
Our computers don't network, Mr. President.
How long has it been since the last civilian aircraft landed?
A little more than 5 hours.
Tell Karen, forget the 4 o'clock speech from here. I'm coming home. We're going to talk to the nation from the Oval Office tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern.
But the Secret Service doesn't think
If
it's safe.
some tin-horn terrorist wants me, tell him to come on over and get me, all right? I'll be home. I'll just be waiting for the bastard.
Mr. President.
Try Commander-in-Chief, whose present command is take the president home.
Far from being a pathetic and unlikable figure, the president was able to comfort and inspire people in their hour of need because they could feel his sincerity.
Mr. President.
It's all right. It's all right. Dan has something to say. I'm listening.
I'm here digging for my brother. I didn't vote for you, sir. But I want you to find the son of a bitch who did this. And when you do, sir, I want you to take care of business, sir.
I hope you find your brother.
Thank you, sir.
And they, in turn, deepened his resolve to never let anything like this happen again.
They all have a confirmed missing, but very few of them believe that their loved one won't be found, hoping for that one miracle case to be dug out.
What are you missing here? Oh. Yes, we can't find him. Beautiful woman. Like you, I can see you have her eyes. Hi. How you doing? Is your mom? So when your dad comes back, he'll know you met me.
Thank you, sir.
Update the Secret Service, and you tell them we're going to be here a lot longer than the scheduled half hour.
Missing a husband?
No, son.
And he's missing.
No, lost. One of the first pulled out.
Sorry.
I already knew. I called the precinct. They said he hadn't been in for roll call. They told me to check back in an hour, but I said no need. If he hadn't called in, I knew where he was. Mr. President, I would like to present you with his shield. Yeah, I want you to have it. He'd want you to have it. To honor all the men and women who lost their lives down there.
Bush has been particularly giving of his time for members of the military.
How are you, dear? What can we do to help? I'm just so grateful you're here. We wouldn't be anywhere else. I crawled through the flames.
You're going to walk right back through that front door.
You will take care of us.
You count on it.
To this day, the former president spends a good deal of time with veterans, getting to know them and helping them in various ways.
So these paintings in this book are of veterans, a couple of whom are here in our audience tonight, a couple of gentlemen that you painted. Introduce these fellas that are here. Hey, guys. I don't know what page they're...
Yeah,
Oh, you know what it is. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Here's Brian.
Okay. All right. Let me show that to everybody. So Brian's right there in the audience, and there's Brian right there. Brian, what do you think of your likeness?
That's an incredible honor. Looks great. Captures my happiness.
So the question isn't, does Brian like it? The question is, does Brian's mother like it?
Oh, and does Brian's mother like it?
I could ask her.
Oh, Brian's mom is here. Oh, do you like it? That's your baby.
So the answer is yes, I do. I love it.
You
I
love
think
it.
that it's amazing.
Well, thank you so much for being here, Mr. President. It has been a real honor.
Can
and
I
a
say
lot of
one
fun.
thing?
Yeah, say whatever you like.
Anybody who buys this book, the money, the proceeds, go to this program to help our vets.
Excellent.
All right.
Great. That's the book right there. It's called Portraits of Courage. There are artwork and stories by President Bush. We'll be right back. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
People like to pretend that the entire world was united with America after the 9/11 attack, and Bush blew this goodwill. But there were few at the outset who were prepared to stand with us and face off against our shared enemies.
Mr. Prime Minister?
Mr. President, you received my message?
Yes. Yes, and I'm more than grateful. Well, all Americans are. We have always been able to depend on you.
And you can continue to. We're shocked at this horror. You have our total support with any retaliation.
Yes, we've had a lot of statements of support. But yours is actually the first to specify retaliation. Our European allies not too secure with me, are they? What with the Kyoto and ABM treaty?
Early days yet. They'll get used to the Texas accent.
Critics also like to pretend that no good or intelligent person could have supported Bush's later decision to take down Saddam Hussein in the face of European opposition. This ignores the fact that the nations who opposed Bush had profited from Saddam's dictatorship.
I have seen war, and I know that war is a malediction. I have seen what it does to the victims, and the victims usually are children, innocent children. So I'm against war, but therefore I am for intervention. Intervention, yes, we must stop. We must stop evil before it becomes too powerful. And things will happen. I hope that my only suggestion is if Europe, and after all, I come from there, if Europe were to apply as much pressure on Saddam Hussein as it does on the United States and Britain, I think we could prevent war.
President Bush didn't stumble his way into Iraq, nor did he lie his way in to steal the oil. He considered the opinions of the experts around him and the facts as we knew them, including the fact that regime change in Baghdad was U.S. policy during the Clinton administration.
We can't use 9/11 as a general warrant to hunt down anyone we think doesn't like us. If we're seen to do that, we won't have not one Arab state in the coalition against UBL and the Taliban, which will weaken the resolve of certain Europeans. We'll be doomed going in.
After what happened to us on 9/11, if we leave any of our enemies standing, it will embolden him. Back to the central issue. Does the coalition define the mission? Or is it the other way around?
Let's take a break. And when we reconvene, let's refocus on the military options in Afghanistan. Well, the outlines are becoming clear, but so are the pitfalls.
Iraq?
Yes, and that Graveyard Empire's business, I want to hear this whole debate go on this afternoon.
Is there any special mission for me?
Listen. Just listen. Then we'll go over it together, but no decision today.
Reasonable people can reasonably disagree about the choices that President Bush made, but demeaning him and lying about his administration, as films like Vice and W do, is not reasonable. It's childish. It is also wrong to think that the widening divisions in the country today are primarily the result of Bush's decisions. He made it clear after 9/11 how he saw the world and what he thought a united America should do about it.
Mr. Speaker, the President of the United States.
The fact that he could not keep our deep-seated disagreements from resurfacing as the memories of that horrible day faded is hardly surprising.
Please be seated, Mr. Secretary. Mr. Speaker, President pro tempore, members of Congress, and fellow Americans. In the normal course of events, presidents come to this chamber to report on the State of the Union. Tonight, no such report is needed. It has already been delivered by the American people. My fellow citizens, for the last 9 days, the entire world has seen for itself the state of our union, and it is strong. We have seen the courage of passengers who rushed terrorists to save others on the ground. Passengers like an exceptional man named Todd Beamer. And would you please help me welcome his wife, Lisa Beamer, here tonight. We have seen the state of our union in the endurance of rescuers working past exhaustion. We have seen the unfurling of flags, the lighting of candles, the giving of blood, the saying of prayers in English, Hebrew, and Arabic. We have seen the decency of a loving and giving people who have made the grief of strangers their own. Tonight, we are a country awakened to danger and called to defend freedom. Our grief has turned to anger, and anger to resolution. Whether we bring our enemies to justice or bring justice to our enemies, justice will be done. We will not forget the citizens of 80 other nations who died with our own. Dozens of Pakistanis, more than 130 Israelis, more than 250 citizens of India, men and women from El Salvador, Iran, Mexico, Canada, and Japan, and hundreds of British citizens. America has no greater friend than that of Great Britain. Thank you for coming, friend. Americans have many questions tonight. Who attacked our country? The evidence all points to a collection of loosely affiliated terrorist organizations known as Al-Qaeda. They are to terror what the mafia is to crime. But its goal is not making money. It is remaking the world and imposing its radical beliefs on people everywhere. Our war on terror begins with Al-Qaeda, but it does not end there. We have seen their kind before. They are the heirs of all the murderous ideologies of the 20th century. They follow the path of fascism and Nazism and totalitarianism, and they will follow that path all the way to where it ends, in history's unmarked grave of discarded lies. Every nation, every region now has a decision to make. Either you are with us or you are with the terrorists. From this day forward, any nation that continues to harbor or support terrorism will be regarded by the United States as a hostile regime. Freedom and fear are at war. Our nation, this generation, will lift a dark threat of violence from our people and our future. We will rally the world to this cause by our efforts and by our courage. And we will not tire, and we will not falter, and we will not fail. It is my hope that in the months and years ahead, life will return almost to normal. Even grief recedes with time and grace. But our resolve must not pass. Each of us will remember what happened that day and to whom it happened. We'll remember the moment the news came, where we were, what we were doing. Some will remember the image of a fire or a story of a rescue. Some will carry memories of a face and a voice gone forever.
And I will carry this. It is the police shield of a man named George Howard, who died at the World Trade Center trying to save others. It was given to me by his mom, Arlene, as a proud memorial to her son. It is my reminder of lives that ended and a task that does not end. And all that lies before us, may God grant us wisdom, and may He watch over the United States of America.